From the heart of our nation's capital, here's Family Research Council President Tony Perkins.
Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Always great to be with you, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Well, I know that you raised concerns about the election results in Georgia.
Right. We've been concerned about what happened in Georgia since November 3rd. In fact, it really goes before that, way back in March. Pretty much the entire Georgia delegation had a conference call discussion with our Secretary of State urging him to please not send out ballot applications to everyone on the voter registration file in the state of Georgia. And he did so anyways. 6.9 million people, in spite of the fact, Tony, that our voter registration file is horribly inaccurate to the tune of probably a low estimate, conservative estimate, around 10%. And so when you're looking at 6.9 million, that means nearly 700,000 invitations to receive a ballot went out to people who are ineligible to vote in Georgia, illegal voters. And so it just opened wide the doors for voter fraud. Our secretary did a number of things that he had no constitutional authority to do, decisions that were left only for the General Assembly of Georgia. He took it upon himself to do it. Time does not allow me right now to go into multiple ways in which voter fraud took place in Georgia. And so we were just objecting to and not just personally. Both the state House and the state Senate in Georgia held hearings about all of this, and they have tons of evidence. And we have a report from our state senators, they themselves urging that the electoral votes from Georgia not be counted and that they be decertified. And unfortunately, we were not able to have a senator. As you mentioned, they all backed out, I suppose, because of the events that took place at the Capitol yesterday. But it really is a tragedy, certainly not only for Georgia, but for election security across the nation.
So, Congressman, clearly the momentum shifted after yesterday's events. I mean, there were senators lined up to object to these certain states, and so I think there was concern. And I was talking with your colleagues, Mark Green, during the lockdown yesterday. You know, I think people probably there's been this conflation of the violence and the challenging of the elections, and I think that has worked to the benefit of the left. I think this was a tragic event that took place yesterday because the very freedoms and the rights that so many of those people came to Washington yesterday to advocate for are now put in greater jeopardy because of some instigators there at the Capitol yesterday.
There's absolutely no question, Tony. It could not be more of a horrible scenario for the president or those who came peacefully to stand for their right, their sacred right to have their voice counted in the voting booth. It's, we are a country for the people and by the people, and the by the people part of that refers to the voting box, and that is sacred. It is to be defended and protected at all costs. And if it is not, it is that part of our electoral process that maintains the balance of power and that puts forth both those who bring policy and political philosophy to our country. And when it is violated, when the sacred trust of the ballot box is violated, when it is compromised, we risk losing our entire republic. And many thousands of people came to the Capitol yesterday for that cause, wanting a stand for protecting and defending the sacred election box. And unfortunately, it got hijacked from bad actors and perhaps many who were here masquerading as Trump supporters. And it was really a horrible day for our country.
So part of the process yesterday, now we know that each chamber has to vote to sustain the objections, and we didn't, that wasn't going to happen in the House. But the important part of this was to bring forth the issues like you just raised a moment ago in the context of a meeting of Congress. Because then it goes back, and we're going to talk about this in a moment with Ken Blackwell, former Secretary of State of Ohio, it goes back to the states. We need to expose the vulnerabilities and the way the system was manipulated, and then put pressure on state legislatures across the country to clean this up.
Absolutely, and as you can well imagine, I've been on the phone and in conversation with state legislators here in Georgia even today, and I am being absolutely assured that the top priority coming into this legislative session will be election integrity here in Georgia and changing some of the horrible decisions that our Secretary of State unilaterally made. But yeah, hopefully those type of things will also happen in legislatures all across this country. And
Right.
my concern is that it won't happen in some blue states, that they kind of like the way this went down, and that at the end of the day, it will continue to compromise and erode the voice of people across the board and kind of lean the scales in the direction of the Democratic Party. I hope that doesn't happen, but that's certainly my fear.
Yeah, I want to transition here for just a moment, Jody, to another aspect of this, because you served, before coming to Congress, you were a pastor, served for a pastor for nearly 20 years in Georgia. You are frustrated because of what yesterday you tried to raise these objections. You did raise them, but you couldn't get a senator to stand with you so that this issue could be challenged. So we talk about it all the time. There's so many frustrations, especially when you're in the minority. But especially as believers and as conservatives, we can never condone or allow violence to take place. Now, I know the vast majority of people who came here yesterday totally disagree with this, but I'm seeing polling data, and I'm actually getting a lot of messages from folks who think, look, we've tried everything else, it's not working. We can never give in to that, to think that we have to use the tactics of the left.
No, absolutely. We cannot go down that path. There is a right way and a wrong way to get things done, and what took place yesterday is, in every sense of the word, the wrong way. And look, I understand the frustration that people have. I have it personally. And as you mentioned, even trying to secure a senator to stand with Georgia in objecting to the electoral votes, and we had three of them lined up, Tony. We had the main one, and then we had a backup, and then we had a backup to the backup. But when all was said and done, they, for whatever reasons, just collapsed and caved by the end of the day yesterday. And listen, the frustration is real, but this is the time that we've got to dig deep in both spiritually and in our everyday action. We have got to pray like never before. We've got to engage our culture and our country like never before, and we've got to take bold, courageous stands like never before. This is like our freedom moment, like our founders had, where you got to draw a line in the sand and say, I'm going to do whatever I can in the under the law and the right biblical ways to stand for freedom and liberty. This is our hour. It's the time for the body of Christ to have her finest hour, and the stakes have never been higher.
Yeah, and of course, Georgia having its runoff election in the Senate this week, and now those results almost completely in. And now, instead of 2 Republican senators, 2 Democratic senators from the state of Georgia, evenly dividing the United States Senate, giving the Democrats the edge with the vice president, incoming vice president. So all of these issues that we've been fighting to advance are now, we're going to be on the defense, as any number of things can be coming out. So this is not a time for people to throw in the towel or give up. There is so much going to be coming down the pike in the next 2 years under this current Congress.
No doubt about it, and that's why we've got to put on our armor and get ready and run to the battle. We can't be on our heels. We've got to face this thing straight up and face to face, and we've got to stand in courage and in faith and in a way that shines light to a dark world, but we've got to stand. And you have been leading these conferences of encouraging people to pray and to stand in the gap. And that's what's got to happen right now more than ever. And so I would just encourage people. You get discouraged after an election, after something. I get that. But after those moments, you've got to stand back up, and we've got to continue standing strong and fighting in behalf of freedom and liberty, not only for ourselves and our families, but for the entire free world. America has been a bastion of liberty, and we've got to maintain that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Congressman Jody Hice, for standing firm in the face of so much, so many challenges, so much frustration, but you're not giving up, and we appreciate that. And thanks for joining us today as well.
My pleasure, Tony. Thank you.